Good evening. We have a great show for you guys tonight. Stay tuned. What's up, everybody? How's everybody's evening doing? Good
Good
afternoon,
evening.
David.
Oh, it's Victory Tuesday.
Oh, it's definitely Victory Tuesday.
Oh, there we go. Now we're looking good. All right. Just getting my phone all lined up here. Well, once again, my voice is bad, so I'll do the best we can. I do all the damn talking. Uh, so let's begin with Little League news, first of all. We've got some new head coaches in the NFL. It was reported today that Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals, is going to become the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans, which, in my opinion, originally, and I spoke with a Titan fan today, is that why didn't they just fire the offensive coordinator? I don't see this as an upgrade over Mike Vrabel. I think that if they needed a new offense, they should have just brought in a new offensive coordinator from the get-go. But I guess they couldn't find somebody, to fill that spot unless they were going to be the head coach also. That's my takeaway from it. She said that the ownership, Amy Adams Scruggs, or whatever her name is was butting heads. He was butting heads with ownership, and that's why he was out. She said he wanted more general manager power in the mold of a Bill Belichick. I think this all began when he said A.J. Brown wasn't going anywhere, and then the general manager immediately traded him off to Philadelphia last year. I think that was the beginning of the end for Mike Vrabel with the Titans as head coach. Looking at the job, Callahan's going to come in. I thought he did a really good job with Browning, the backup quarterback who filled in for Joe Burrow, at the end of the season when Burrow was hurt and couldn't play. They nearly made the playoffs, even though it looked like they were going to be eliminated early on. I said they were done weeks before the end of the season, and they just kind of hung around. And it took the Chiefs to knock them off and finally get them out of the playoff race. But now he's going to have to determine, is Will Levis the quarterback? They're probably not going to retain or sign back Ryan Tannehill. Derrick Henry is probably gone. It's going to be a complete rebuild offensively. I think Hopkins only signed a one-year deal with Tennessee. They've got some good defensive players, Justin Simmons and the like. But unless it's some kind of miraculous turnaround this next year, I'm not going to expect anything out of Tennessee, Chris.
Tennessee's got a rough ride. I don't know how many viewers watched his interview with Bustin' with the Boys. I haven't fully watched it, but I've watched a couple short clips of things he said, and he made it pretty clear that he wants to compete for a Super Bowl, so his time in Tennessee is, I would say, 90% done. Can't be mad at him. That dude gave you everything. I think they got a quarterback in Will Levis. I think this is the smartest thing.
I like Will Levis too.
This is the smartest thing I've heard out of Tennessee's camp. Because Ryan Tannehill was a bridge QB. He wasn't a Jared Goff. He didn't revive his career. He didn't get back to the top tier. Don't get me wrong, he didn't play total trash either. But he wasn't that QB when you needed a QB in big game situations and the run wasn't working. He wasn't the guy to get them done those years. And I think they honestly just set too much behind him. So at least you got, to me, the best news is you got a QB that looks like he can play. Maybe, bad news is now you waited long enough where Henry's going to be gone, and you're going to have to rebuild the offense, which is not a bad thing. I don't disagree with the hire because, like you said, he had Cincinnati's backup QB there for a minute, looking like they're about to sneak in the wild card. So I think you got a good coach coming in. Let him build his offense. Will Levis has plenty of time to learn the offense. So once they get those guys within the year to 2 years, maybe like something like the Lions, maybe by year 3, they're already in the playoffs. So It's not all dark in Tennessee, but unfortunately, some things got a little too far, and now this is the road you got to go.
Just to finish up on Tennessee and taking the job there, this is not an easy job to take. If they'd have said this at the beginning of the year, we'd have been like, yeah, it's a weak division. But I mean, the Colts nearly made the playoffs. Houston came from behind and won the division. Jacksonville slipped back a little bit, and I'm sure they're going to recover. They just had a down year. And so, it's not going to be an easy division to play in. And they're in the AFC, which we all know is loaded. And so, but that's it on Tennessee. Raiders went ahead and finalized that they're going to retain Antonio Pierce to be the
Let's give a round of applause for Davis making his first smart football decision in probably 20 years. Congratulations.
It was announced today that they're signing Tom Telesco, the former general manager of the LA San Diego Chargers, to be the new GM, which I think is smart. A lot of people are bashing the move because of how much salary cap hell he kind of left the Chargers in. But the roster he built there was made to win. They just didn't have the coaching to follow it up. They had Khalil Mack. He brought in Joey Bosa. He brought in Justin Herbert. He drafted all them receivers. He's been there a very long time since, they changed over from A.J. Smith. He built that team. They just haven't had a good enough coach to get them over the hump. But it's been reported that Jim Harbaugh is on the verge of signing with the Chargers, which we have mentioned and talked about. I know you're not thrilled because you like him being there in Michigan, but I think this is the best fit for him. He's got a quarterback. If he goes there, they're going to have to work on the defense. That's really been the core part of the team. And even though he is kind of an offensive coach, he has always based his teams on defense and running the football. And if they get those two things right with the quarterback that they have, I know they're in the same division with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, but I think this is a really good move for the Chargers.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not that mad that he's leaving Michigan. I expected it. Honestly, it might help us out with the NCAA bullshit.
Well, and the interim coach, filled in for him during the 6 weeks that he didn't get to be the head coach. If he becomes head coach there, they're not going to miss a beat, I don't think, because most of the assistants that Jim's going to hire are going to be NFL assistants, not necessarily from his staff at Michigan.
Well, here's the thing. If Jim takes his job, Michigan's losing their defensive coordinator. He's going to take Jason Milton. And the reason why is because the two brothers work like this together. Many people might not know an outside source, but our old defense coordinator before Jason Milton is the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens right now. We signed him from the coaching staff years back. He was a young coach. He wasn't a defensive coordinator at that point, but he was like an upcoming coach on the coaching staff. He came to Michigan. He was our defensive coordinator that bring the Baltimore Ravens defense to Michigan. He ran it, and then when the defense coordinator opened up, he went back to Baltimore and became the defense coordinator now. So the rumor has it is if Harbaugh leaves, big chances Jason Milton, who runs the same exact defense in Michigan as the Baltimore Ravens, as our last DC, will be going to LA with him. So that could hurt Michigan, which it is what it is.
I think that's the case. If knowing what kind of defense they had, and that they have been, with Baltimore in the AFC before, he'll have a good footing on, improving the team going forward.
Oh yeah, I mean you're getting two great coaches right off bat.
In coordinator news, we have both the offensive and defensive coordinators for the Philadelphia Eagles have been fired, and they are interviewing new offensive and defensive coordinator candidates for the Philadelphia Eagles. The name that stuck out to me was Ron Rivera for defensive coordinator position. He has been in Philadelphia before under Andy Reid because he's part of the Andy Reid coaching tree. I know they didn't have a very good defense in Washington this last year, but that was mainly under Jack Del Rio's tutelage, and they don't have a whole lot of very good players on that side of the ball when it comes to their linebackers and then their secondary. And their best pass rushers they traded away at the trading deadline to San Francisco and Chicago. So he wasn't really working with a whole lot. He'd be working with a whole lot better cast of characters in Philadelphia.
And to me, with Philadelphia locker, because I'm done with the BS. There was obviously locker room bullshit going on behind those doors. Jason Kelsey pretty much said it the nicest way he possibly could. So to me, that might be a smart hire for the Eagles. You're talking about a mature coach that's been to the top as a head coach, has been to the bottom as a head coach, has been around. That team really needs real leaders. And honestly, I think the Eagles head coach, I know he's a young head coach, and I don't know exactly how much years he's been head coach, but having a veteran coach on the coaching staff to help him might do him some good because while he's, talking shit to fans after they win a game, he's obviously out of the loop that his whole locker room fell apart.
Yeah, I mean, he was a head coach in his first year. They made the playoffs, lost to Tampa in the first round. In his second year, he takes them to the Super Bowl, and then he loses his coordinators. So it really feels like that he started the season with one hand kind of tied behind his back. Now, they started the season just fine, but they weren't blowing people out. They were winning really close games, and eventually it caught up to them at the end of the season. And then, of course, like you said, locker room trouble. They tried to head it off at the pass by appointing Matt Patricia as defensive coordinator and taking, Desai, the original defensive coordinator this year, and keeping him on staff but replacing him as the play caller. It did no good. It divided the team. It caused problems behind the scenes. They were having problems offensively behind the scenes already. They were lucky to make the playoffs after starting 10-1, and then they got trashed by the Buccaneers in the first round. So, for Philadelphia's sake, you can hope that they're going to turn things around. It starts with the coaching, and maybe that'll trickle down, bring in some fresh faces in the offseason, and things will look better for them.
Exactly. Yeah, they definitely need something. I expect them to be back.
Sorry, I had to cough.
Oh, you're good, buddy.
The other coordinator news that I saw today was that the former defensive coordinator for Atlanta, who did an okay job this last year, it was the offense that didn't run very good for Atlanta. He's accepted the position as the new defensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars, which was their weakness this year. So maybe some coaching changes there will help out Jacksonville. But unless you have any other league news, I mean, we're basically the only other thing that I have is it feels like Bill Belichick wants to be the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, but they are interviewing everybody and their brother and it feels like they're doing their best to not have to give him the job, but they haven't come across anybody that they want to hire or that's willing to accept the position at this point. Because I mean, they even interviewed Harbaugh, they interviewed Vrabel, they interviewed, I think Eric Bieniemy interviewed in Atlanta. They interviewed. I'm drawing a blank, but I mean, the laundry list line of people that they have interviewed in Atlanta. Now, Harbaugh or Belichick has gotten 2 interviews, but they're both over Zoom. The in-person interviews began today. So now that they have the in-person interviews, I think we're going to start seeing some hirings a lot faster, like we already did today with Tennessee. I think we'll probably have a couple more hires before we get to the championship games. Do you have anything else to add for league news before we review the top round?
To me, Atlanta, I don't know what I'm with you. I don't know what they're waiting for. To me, just hire Belichick, or Vrabel. Maybe they just want to make sure they get this right. That's the only thing I got on Atlanta. We can move on.
Well, I was going to say, there are other coaching openings that we haven't discussed. Washington, they interviewed Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator of the LA Rams. They interviewed Eric Bieniemy, their current offensive coordinator. And then you've got the Seattle Seahawks, but all signs point to, at this point, Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator of the Cowboys, going to that job. But he's already interviewed, and they haven't hired him yet, but it wasn't an in-person interview. And so maybe they're waiting on an in-person interview for that. Or there's talk that maybe Mike Vrabel might fit the bill in Seattle. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that.
I know Washington, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I know Washington for sure scheduled another second interview with Ben Johnson, and I believe also Aaron Glenn as well.
Right.
Because I know they did interviews this past week, Friday and Saturday, after practice with the Commanders, and then I seen another release saying that Ben Johnson for sure has a second interview, and I'm pretty sure Aaron Glenn does as well, because they're talking about it that right now that Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn it could come down to them two competing for that head coaching job at the end of the day, which is kind of crazy because I know the last thing you want to do is be competing with another coach that you're close with on the same staff for another head coaching job. Which also kind of scares me because I was hoping by a miracle of God that Ben Johnson and Glenn would still be in Detroit next year. I mean, there's still a chance, we'll see, but it's not really looking good.
I don't think you're going to lose Aaron Glenn. I don't think you're going to lose Aaron Glenn. I think you are going to lose Ben Johnson. I don't know that he's been interviewed yet by the Carolina Panthers, but if he wants that big money that they were talking about, he'll end up with Carolina to get that big money. And so, we'll just have to wait and see. Now let's take a look at, you have not made it to where I can share the screen.
Oh, my bad, sorry.
You're bad.
I'm slacking, boys. I'm all hyped up. I'm all hyped up on victory over here, David.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Let's see if we can keep my computer from going berserk. And we'll begin with the Saturday games. Of course, you got the Baltimore Ravens and the Houston Texans. I thought that Houston came to play in the game. They kept it close early, but, as a young team, they're not real good at making halftime adjustments yet. and Baltimore's defense really turned on the pressure in the second half, and they just swarmed over them. But looking at the Houston Texans going forward, I think that with another offseason, another set of draft picks, because they're going to have more. They have Cleveland's other number one. They got Cleveland's other number one, so they got 2 first-rounders again. If they just continue to work on the defense, add some more weapons, they need to work on that offensive line a little bit. With the exception of Laramie Tunsil in the center, C.J. Stroud had to really get rid of the ball in a hurry this year, but he did a great job, and I expect him to be Rookie of the Year. Lamar Jackson played, of course, great. We expect him to be the MVP of the league. I thought it was a good game up until halftime, and then, the better team obviously won the game.
Yeah. I from the game, I thought it was going to be a very close game. The second half was a whole different story. And like you said, I mean, Houston's going to be there. I expect them to be the top dog going into that division next year, especially if they have a good offseason. I like where C.J. Stroud's head is. They said Will Anderson, the middle linebacker for Houston, had tears in his eyes when they lost. And he walked up to him and he's like, "Why are you crying, man?" He said, "We're good. We're going to be back here next year." And, that's just the type of leader that you want to see. And to me, Houston got the max you could possibly get out of a rookie QB, in my opinion. I mean, they lost fighting. They had a year. I mean, they started out slow, got hot, cooled off for a second, got hot again, and they had a year. I can't wait to see what they can do next year when everybody knows the offense. I'm telling you, Dan Campbell has changed the NFL, and in a good way, I think. And you're going to see, I think in the future, you're going to see way more competitive league with guys like Houston's coach used to play. AP and Raiders used to play in this league. They know it as a player. They know it on both sides of the field. And if you're seeing a lot of these coaches that have playing experience come in, and they're getting these players to play for them fast and become good.
Moving on to the Packers at the 49ers, I really enjoyed watching this game. I thought that the Packers had the 49ers. I thought that it was going to be exactly what you wanted, a Packers-Detroit Lions NFC Championship game, because the Packers played it well. They ran the ball down the throat of the 49ers. The Niners playing in the rain, Purdy had trouble with accuracy on his throws. Of course, Deebo Samuel got injured with a hurt shoulder. Now, it's not broken, but, if he doesn't play at 100%, 49ers could be in trouble going forward, because they really have to have their full contingent of weapons for their offense to hit on all cylinders. I know they got Kittle and I know they got Ayuk, but even with Ayuk in the game, he couldn't get the ball to Ayuk. He had to keep throwing the ball to Jawan Jennings because, Ayuk was getting the double coverage because Samuel wasn't in the game anymore. And, I thought Christian McCaffrey played well, but I didn't think that they ran the ball nearly enough in the game. I thought they kind of got pass happy. And, but the Packers ran the ball well. Jordan Love is definitely the quarterback of the future. They're going to have to pay him sooner or later. And it will not be an easy stroll through the NFC North next year for your team.
No, it won't. And I'm okay with it. I'd rather have the division. Our division used to be called the Black and Blue Division is a nickname. And it hasn't lived up to that name, and to me, like a century. Because we've never had the whole division be good. We've had the Packers and Vikings be good, the Packers and Bears be good, but we've never had multiple teams. And I feel if the Vikings make smart decisions, they get Kirk Cousins back, they're going to be a playoff caliber team. I think. I mean, they didn't lose much they almost were without him. So, and now you got the Packers, and now you got Detroit. And then if the Bears can get their heads out of their ass and have a great off season and not make no stupid choices, you might even have them being competitive. And so going into next year, you might have a hell of a fucking division. And guess what? I'm all for it. Bring it on.
You mentioned the Chicago Bears, and that's something in league news that I forgot to mention. They hired Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator from the Seattle Seahawks, to come over and be the offensive coordinator with the Chicago Bears. And he comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree. He was a former, coach with the Rams. And before that, he was on the Washington staff that had Shanahan and McVay and LaFleur and all them guys. And so he's been up in Seattle for a couple of years. And with the departure of Pete Carroll, all of the coaches have been allowed to do what they want. And so he signs on with Chicago. And I think that, both Geno Smith is not quite as mobile as Russell Wilson, but this guy's used to having a mobile quarterback. And I think that'll work out well if they decide to stick to Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Oh, happy days are here.
Happy days are here.
32 years. Go ahead. It's all about your team. Tell us all about it, Chris.
Oh, this game was great. I want to start this off with I'm going to give Tampa Bay a lot of credit. In the first half, they showed up. They tied it 10-10. It looked like it was going to be a hell of a game. Second half, we were finally able to put up a 14-point deficit. Eventually, they got a touchdown, which to me, I thought that's where their coach, Todd Bowles, I understand why he did it. But to me, it was kind of crazy that he just didn't kick that extra point. But it worked out in our favor. Props to Derek Barnes. They got one more chance, and he ended the game in the first drive, the first play, and sealed the deal with that pick. All in all, I loved what I seen. Defense played good. Offense played good as well. And, we're going to need the same effort plus some going into next week. Going into this week, I mean, I want to also give a shout out to my center, Frank. Not only did he sprain his knee in this game, he also dislocated his ankle and somehow ended up going back in the game and playing the rest of the game on it.
I didn't hear that it was dislocated. I just heard that he'd sprained it also.
I read a report that came out today that he actually dislocated his ankle and he wouldn't take no for an answer. He went out and played, and he's playing Sunday. The dudes came out. He said he's not missing any game. His dad taught him how to play through pain, and that's what he's been doing all year. He actually had from people that don't know, he actually had toe surgery last offseason for an injury he developed from last year. And the surgery didn't go like they thought it was going to go. And he actually has to have a whole other surgery that he had last season again to get it fixed the proper way, because the first time around it didn't work. So he's been battling that injury from training camp. And playing through all this is just beyond crazy. But I love it. It just shows you how tough this team is. And all in all, good game. Yeah, props to the fans, baby. We They set the decimal record for fourth field in a playoff game, 133 in the wild card. They broke it this game as well to 134.6 or point .3. So
Yeah, you're now the loudest indoor stadium in the world. You have surpassed the Superdome, which I believe held the record for the indoor, whatever. So your team has the indoor record, and my team has the outdoor record. So, I know you and I are thinking the same thing. I know everybody, we've been doing this podcast since the beginning of this year. The first game of the season was the Detroit Lions at the Kansas City Chiefs. And we both want the last game of the season to be the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. And we've got that opportunity now because the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes go on the road to Buffalo. They are patient. They use their running game. No penalties from the right tackle, Jawan Taylor. Okay. No holding by Donovan Smith on the left side. Okay. No drop passes by Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And the Kansas City Chiefs did what they had to do. Both of these teams, both Buffalo and Kansas City,
it's
when they
crazy.
play each other, I'm telling you, both teams try to give the game away to each other. Okay.
I'm glad you say it because I got a take on here, and I didn't want anybody to take my words and twist them. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So when I say my take, you know where I'm going.
Okay. So here we go. Okay. All of these guys are playing, lights out. But you get Josh Allen, okay, fumbles the ball, and all the Chiefs got to do is jump on it. But they try to scoop it up and run, and Buffalo recovers. They try a fake punt, and it doesn't work. Kansas City gets the ball, and Miko Hardman fumbles the ball into the end zone, trying to reach for the touchdown. I felt like Kansas City really had control of the game, despite Buffalo leading in time of possession. They played keep away and they did what they had to do. But in the fourth quarter, they reverted back to their normal selves, trying to throw 60-yard passes with Josh Allen, and they abandoned their running game. And when they did that, Kansas City was able to make stops on defense because they were not making stops when the running game was being effective.
No, they
And
weren't.
when they stopped running the ball, which it's the same thing that happened against the 49ers in the Super Bowl. It's the same thing that happened against the Eagles in the Super Bowl. It's the same thing that happened with Cincinnati in the AFC Championship game. You have to continue to run the football against the Kansas City Chiefs. If you try to go back to airing it out, we're going to beat your ass. And that's exactly what happened. And so now we get to, this is this here. I was really glad, I was proud they were able to go on the road and get the victory. I saw a bunch of really fun things as a Chiefs fan. Jason Kelsey, out there, is in the skybox with Taylor and all the family. And he's got his shirt off and he's hollering and screaming and drinking beer with the fans. All you got Buffalo people there going, come play for us,
Yeah.
because he's a burly guy he is a really likable person. It
He
doesn't
is.
matter what team he plays for, you know. And
Honestly,
I can't wait to watch the New Heights podcast with Jason and Travis tomorrow on YouTube and hear all about how this went down. He's out in the stands picking up little girl Taylor fans and getting autographs for them and just having a really good old time.
and
And
honestly, he made this game. I want to be like that.
Kelsey played really well and got 2 touchdowns in the game. The second one was a little questionable, but it was automatically reviewed, and he was reaching over the goal line as his knee hit the out of bounds.
So here's my take. My take is I want to give the Chiefs credit, even though you should have lost this game.
Oh.
With those key mistakes you said, should have cost them the game in a tight game like that. But Buffalo Bills once again choke and do stupid things. So this is my take, and Buffalo fans, I don't know if you heard, but their kicker Bass, to me, who has been a very solid kicker for them over the years.
He's on my fantasy team. I think I can't get Butker. I can never get Butker, and I can never get Justin Tucker. I think the third best kicker in the league is Tyler Bass. He's on my fantasy team.
Tyler Bass had to delete all of his social media due to death threats, trash talk because he missed the field goal. Hey, Buffalo, you had the fucking game won. You had the game in the palm of your hands to put the Chiefs out and make sure you won the game. But like Dave said, you stop running the ball, throwing in haymakers when there's still plenty enough time to run the ball and stick to the game plan and win that game. You cost yourself the game where you had to ask your kicker to make a field goal to tie the game.
Well, I think that if they'd have made the kick, Chiefs had 2 timeouts and would have had 1:40 left. We've seen what they could do in the past with 13 seconds. They only needed a field goal to win. The way that they were playing, they didn't punt. They scored, with the exception of the kneel down at the end of the half. Okay, they scored. It didn't matter if it was a field goal or a touchdown. So what they had the one turnover that Mecole Hardman that fumbled through the end zone, and then they kneeled down at half. Yeah. Because the time of possession was so in favor of Buffalo that they didn't get the ball very often, but when they did, they took it down and did something with it. And they would have again. I really believe that. I think that it would have ended 30-27 because they'd have milked the clock down to nothing because their running game was working very well too. Yeah. It was a really nice change of pace. Isaiah Pacheco played very well. And, like we said, because they were missing linebackers, Travis Kelce was wide open all night. And so he played well. The team played well. And, that's our recap. You got that right, Dennis. Yeah. No, for sure. And I don't blame you. I think the Chiefs could have came back for sure. But at the same time, that's uncalled for it's really uncalled for going after your kicker like that. I'm still here, but the screen has gone black. Anyway, I want to use my graphics, so let me come right back here and we'll talk about. Oh, here we go. We're all right. You can see me now, so at least we can talk about it. I think that our dreams end this weekend. I mean, let's be real, okay? You know, they got to go on the road, the best two teams all season long. Now, we've had the best four teams in the NFL, in my opinion, have made the Final Four. But all of these teams have weaknesses. And there's a reason that Baltimore and San Francisco are the number one seeds. And I think that going on the road, you know, I will be very surprised if either one of our teams makes it to the Super Bowl. I'm going to root for both of our teams to get there. If only one of them gets there, I'm going to root for the one that does. And, but I just feel like there is a winning formula for each of our teams. When you look at the first game, which will be between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens at, I believe it is 3:00 Eastern time, and that'll be on CBS. I think that Kansas City has to play keep away the way Buffalo did Kansas City this last week. They need to run the ball, pick up the first downs, continue to play lights out defense, but they're not going to be able, you know, they're going to have a hard time stopping Lamar Jackson from running the ball. They had a hard time stopping Josh Allen this last week. They had a hard time stopping the run. And so if Baltimore relies on their running game and doesn't try to make it a shootout because, hey, let's show Lamar Jackson is a passing quarterback, you know, make sure everybody knows he's the MVP of the league because he can throw it really good this year. If they do that, Kansas City wins the game. If they run the football and they play good defense and they rely on their defense and the running game, Baltimore's probably going to win this game at home and go to the Super Bowl. Kansas City can win the game if their defense can prevent Lamar Jackson from running all over the field. If they can contain him and stop the normal running game, they have an all-pro and Pro Bowl secondary in L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie. They'll probably get Mike Edwards back, who got a concussion, who's playing at safety. But his replacement, Chamari Connor, a rookie, was the highest Pro Football Focus rated safety this last week in the game versus Buffalo. So I see him and the team. I think they can hold down, you know, some of their receivers. The thing that I think Baltimore can do in the passing game is they're going to get Mark Andrews back. So they'll have Mark Andrews on one side, they'll have Isaiah Likely on the other side. If they run a lot of two tight end sets, that'll set up a lot of blocking to run the ball, play action, and get it to one of their terrific tight ends who can catch the ball. That'll pick up the chunk yardage they need. Patrick Mahomes loses his first road playoff game. I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens to win the game. Go ahead, Chris.
I've been waiting for this. And now, normally, I agree a lot with David. We have to play a clean game to win this game. But I'm still going to ride the Lions. Debo's hurt. Even if he plays, he's not 100%. So what the Lions need to do is we need to run the ball. Run the ball. Green Bay did it. We got two backs capable of both hitting 100 scrimmage yards in the game. We need to use all our weapons to our power, keep away, and make Brock Purdy, not CMC, not Debo, not Ajay, not Kettle, make Brock Purdy beat us. Because when you put the games in his hand and make him beat you, you got a good chance of beating this 49ers team. Also, David, do you believe in history repeats itself?
Well, first of all, you're jumping the gun a little bit. I thought you were going to talk about the Chiefs game first, and then we'd talk about Detroit.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But I do believe in history repeating itself. And I think that, when it comes to the game here between Detroit and San Francisco, I agree completely. Run the football. If Aaron Jones can run the ball behind their so-so offensive line against the 49ers, then I know your much improved offensive line, even with a hurt Frank Ragnow, you guys can run it down their throat. If you ground and pound them and keep the ball out of their hands, score field goals when you gotta. Don't go for the 4th and 2 on the 2-yard line to try and score a touchdown. Kick that field goal. Get the points. Okay? If you make it a low-scoring game, you play sound defense. I would blitz the shit out of Brock Purdy because, he's not probably going to have all his weapons. I don't think that Debo Samuel's going to be able to play. If he does, he ain't going to play for very long because if he takes one good hit on that shoulder, he'll be done again. I would do the most coverage would be on George Kittle. Okay. And that is my thoughts on how Detroit can win the game. But like we said, I think San Francisco is going to do it. I think that with them playing at home, Goff has not performed well outside of the dome. Okay. On the road, they have suffered some pretty big losses when they're not inside or on a field turf style field. They're going to be playing on natural grass. There's a chance it could be rainy again this week. It's going to be the later game, so it could be kind of cool, not necessarily cold because you are looking at, California. But I think that the conditions for the game against a team that had the number 1 seed, we know they've got a really good defense. I feel like their defense is superior to the Lions, but they have a problem stopping the run. I think in the end, I think that they'll make just enough plays. I think it will be a close game. There's not going to be any blowouts this weekend. I heard somebody say Baltimore was going to blow out the Chiefs. And I'm like, have they not watched all season long the defense for the Chiefs play? I don't care if Lamar Jackson runs it 50 times, and gets 20 yards every damn time. There's no way they blow out Kansas City if Patrick Mahomes has a chance with the ball.
See, here's my take. I'm not worried about Goff and the 49ers playing in San Francisco. One reason, he played the Rams. He's really familiar with that stadium. Also, San Francisco fans stopped Green Bay fans from a lot of them getting in the stadium. Well, article came out today, and as of right now, 20% of tickets sold have been to Lions fans. They're saying Lions fans are making that trip. Also, the Lions' last road victory in the playoffs, 66 years ago. Can you guess where that was, David?
It was in San Francisco.
What did the Lions go do after we won that game? We won our last one of these. I'll show you. Last one of these.
You won your last NFL championship. I don't remember who you played against.
San Francisco, Cleveland.
Against Cleveland?
Yep. So I just have a hunch that history is going to repeat itself. I also know that we could go in and lose this game, and that's okay too. I ain't gonna be mad. I might shed. I'm either way. I'm ending this year on a positive note, and I'll eat crow the following week. Don't you worry, with a smile on my face. Because guess what? The Lions are playing with house money, baby. The Lions are going to be back in the playoffs next year. We're ahead of our schedule.
I have no doubt of that. You know, all these teams that are in the championship games are going to be in the playoffs. I think that we'll see a much different version of the Kansas City Chiefs next year. I think we'll see a much different version of the San Francisco 49ers next year. They're going to have to pay Brock Purdy.
Exactly.
Okay? If they don't pay Brock Purdy, you know, then there's a chance that they may end up bringing in another quarterback, especially if Detroit happens to win this game, because everybody says the weakness of the 49ers is their quarterback. I think that all of these teams, you know, you're going to have to re-sign Goff.
Yep.
You know, you're going to have, I think you've got lots of cap space.
Oh, we do.
And so, I mean, you know, they're going to be wanting to bring in some free agents. This will become a destination now. People believe in the Detroit Lions. They believe that they're a team that could get there and win just on the fact that they've done what they've done this year. Think about this. People like Dan Campbell. You know, they can see what they are building here, and people want to be part of something special, especially if you don't make it and they just need a couple more pieces to get over the hump. I'm going to be the guy they bring in that gets us there, because these football players have egos. Yep. I'm going to come in. I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to give you that one extra pass rusher you need so that I can sack the quarterback, recover the fumble. We'll run it in for the touchdown. Detroit goes to the Super Bowl, you know, and they'll be immortalized in Detroit forever. If Detroit wins and happens to win this whole thing this year, when they do win, because I feel like they can and will at some point in the next couple of years, it'll be like the 85 Chicago Bears. These guys will dine out on this championship forever.
Oh, dude, this city, put this way, I won't be in Ford Field Sunday for the watch party at the stadium. I couldn't afford the tickets. I'm sorry, I couldn't afford $1,500 for one fucking seat last week. I wanted to see a playoff game. There's just no way I can afford that much money. But guess what? We have a watch party. Mind you, they sold tickets, $20 after season ticket holders. They sold the fucking watch party out, David. That's how crazy it's been in Detroit. Like, and get this. Dan Campbell's this is 30-year Dan Campbell. We're a year ahead on a rebuild.
Yeah, so this is scheduled by at least a year.
Yeah. So here's the best thing, and this is my other take in it. San Francisco being the #1 seed, being at home, hosting the Lions, coming hot. I mean, we're smoking as we're riding in San Francisco. They have all that pressure at home. The Lions have none. We're not supposed to be here. Everybody had us 1-1. They took the Rams.
I get what you're saying, but when you get to this point, you start to feel a little pressure. You start to dream about it, what it could be like. You know, that's the reason when these guys lose, they cry, because they start to think about all the work that they have put in to get to this point, that it's going to be worth it, that it's going to be, special, and that they'll be remembered forever, and when it doesn't happen, they don't realize that they're still going to be remembered. They don't realize how special and important it still is, because, they didn't win. People still remember,
for sure.
especially in your home. They may not remember in Florida, who won or lost, because it has nothing to do with them. But the people in Detroit, fans of Detroit, they're going to remember no matter what.
Exactly. It's going to be a great game. I have a gut feeling we're going to pull the biggest upset.
I want to see Kansas City, Detroit, buddy. I want to see.
I want it too.
We will be so excited, Dave.
And you know what I mean?
Excited.
And my take on the Baltimore Chiefs game, my personal take, I think Lamar Jackson and Baltimore chokes. I don't trust Lamar Jackson yet. He has to prove to me that he. I will trust him as a QB.
Choking. I could see them being outplayed, because despite how well I admire the coaching staff for Baltimore, I can see Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo out scheming them and out coaching them. And it'll be a telltale sign at halftime of that game whether that's the case or not. If they come in ready and they've got a plan and it's working, Kansas City's been here before. The Baltimore team that is currently constructed is not. And they're playing at home. That's a lot of pressure to win in front of your fans. Whereas Kansas City's the reigning champion coming to town. And as much as I want to see them win, I've already said, and the reason I'm picking it is all because of the logo.
I'm so sick of that damn logo talk.
Hey, that logo's purple and red. And so, that means that San Francisco and Baltimore are going to the Super Bowl, because last year it was red and green or whatever. And that meant that it was the Chiefs and the Eagles. And the year before that, it was orange and yellow. So it was the Rams and the Bengals. And next year, it's going to be purple and green, because it'll be the Ravens again. And Green Bay Packers are going to make it.
Or Aaron Rodgers said Jets. It better be Jets green.
Well, then that means that the Minnesota Vikings make it in the NFC. Oh, man, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Oh.
You wouldn't like that very much, would you?
I don't have plans for that.
I don't have plans for that either. I'm being a realist.
But to be 100%, here's the thing. The Super Bowl logo is always released. The color scheme's always shown before playoffs start. So the Rams and Bengals didn't make it. Coincidence. Now, and then last year was KC and Philly. So now, if this does play out, where the Baltimore Ravens and San Francisco do make it, per se, that's 3 years straight that the color scheme of the Super Bowls match the teams that make it. Now, I know at the end of the day, it don't mean shit, and I don't really still buy into it. But it makes you really question, is it
We
true?
always question the validity of the game. There's too many bad calls by referees. There's so much money riding on these things nowadays. There's always been hints that there's impropriety, which is why they try so hard to prevent any of that from coming into, to view or whatever. I still think that in the off season, they need to seriously consider adding a sky judge / TV referee. Okay. If you have a TV referee, he's watching the game just as well as we are. Everybody sees what's happening on the monitor. The announcers are like, oh, well, he caught it. Well, hell yeah, he caught it. So
Yeah.
how come they're calling it incomplete on the field? Okay. And you're out of challenges or it's inside 2 minutes. How come the judge isn't like, hey, he caught it? Because New York talks to him in their earpiece all the time so that they can make an expedited review. Well, how about review all the things that are important? I'm not looking for holding on every play or an offsides or anything like that. But when you have somebody that's clearly done something, the defensive back hits the player for the Saints when the Saints should have went to the Super Bowl instead of the Rams. That could have been corrected. When Marquez Valdez-Scantling's running down the field against the Packers this year and is literally tackled before the ball gets there, pass interference. How come it's not called? Are they blind? Are they so old they can't run down the field as fast as receivers so they didn't see anything? Their heart rate's up and they're like, I'm dying. It
Yeah.
happens all the time, And so we need a sky judge / TV referee. All these games are broadcast nationally through, used to be DirecTV, now it's YouTube TV with the Sunday Ticket. They have enough cameras. They have enough angles. They have people there who know the rules. They tell you what the rules are on TV. Every play is reviewed anyway on TV. They show the instant replay after every play while the announcers are talking. And if there's anything that they see it. Oh, buzz down. We saw something. They get it corrected immediately. There's no reason why they can't do that. You still have the referees on the field doing their normal job. They don't get interfered with unless something clearly comes up. If something clearly comes up, which happens at least 3 or 4 times a game, they get it corrected, and we get the correct winners, the correct calls on the field, and people are not getting screwed out of their gambling money because gambling's legal everywhere now. People are not getting screwed out of, playoffs. They're not getting screwed out of, whatever it is. There's so many things that are involved in the outcomes of these games that doesn't have anything to do with money.
Exactly. The biggest question is the NFL going to see our side? Because you already know I agree with everything you just said.
I feel like it's the same situation that's happened for years and years and years before they had the playoffs in college. No news is bad news because they keep people talking about it. If people are talking about it, then they're still in the news. Did you see how they got screwed by the refs last night? That was clearly holding. He hit the quarterback in the head. Did you see Chris Jones get the ball, but they called it roughing the passer when he had the ball in his hand and he was trying to prevent himself from landing on the guy. It's stuff like that.
Agreed.
To
me, I haven't had no complaints.
These are just examples of games that I have personally watched and
Yeah.
seen things happen and wonder, why the hell are they not fixing it? And, part of the reason why they have these spring leagues that are now combined, you had the USFL and you had the XFL. Before that, we had the Alliance of American Football. These places are training grounds for referees of the future. They're training grounds to try out new rules that can be implemented in the NFL. Players that have been long gone and forgotten that get another chance. The kicker for the Cowboys, best kicker in the league this year, made the Pro Bowl, came out of one of them spring leagues. The kick returner, he come from there. You had quarterbacks and backup players all over the league that were signed out of these spring leagues. They got Sky Judge and both of them. And now that they'll be the United Football League, they'll either have Dean Blandino or they'll have Mike Pereira watching the games. They're in the TV booth with the guys in the command center. They watch the games and they see something go wrong and they buzz down and they fix it just like that.
So
you slow the game down.
So am I hearing you straight? The XFL and the USFL merged together?
They merged. They're now the United Football League. They kept 4 teams from each league, so it's still only 8 teams instead of making it a 16-team league.
Which teams got the cut?
They're going to start in March. You've got the Memphis Showboats, the Michigan Panthers, the Birmingham Stallions, the Houston Roughnecks. You got the St. Louis Battlehawks, the Arlington Renegades, the DC Defenders. I don't think I'm missing anybody. I think that's everybody. Oh, San Antonio Brahmas. Those are the 8 teams that made it. Wade Phillips, the former head coach and defensive coordinator in the NFL, is going to be head coach in San Antonio. And you've got some big-name coaches still. They had some big-name players. A.J. McCarron played starting quarterback last year for the St. Louis Battlehawks. They made it all the way to the Final Four.
Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, Jeff Fisher's still the head coach of the Michigan Panthers.
No, he took off and they got a new guy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they got a new guy. So, but that's just a breakdown. Just talking about NFL stuff. I am interested a little bit in the spring league. It's co-owned by The Rock now. They've got Fox and ESPN are going to be broadcasting. So there'll be games on ABC and FS1. But, they're going to try and mainstream this thing. It's basically a minor league for the NFL. And so when you watch these games, like I said, they're testing out rules. They're testing out referees. They're testing out players. They're testing out coaches. All of that stuff leads to getting to the big league. And so, they're not in competition with them because they're playing in the off season.
Yep.
They play 10 games. Call it good.
See, to me, that's kind of. See, to me, that's what kind of kills them a little bit, but at the same time makes it, because I know there's a point in the end of summer where I'm getting hungry for football. I'm getting pumped up for football. Realistically, with this broadcast, I might end up start watching it, to be honest, because when we're out here through the off season talking draft, you can't help but get pumped up for the season. So it'll make me invest my time actually watching. the Michigan Panthers because I've only watched maybe like 1 to 2, and I don't even think I finished a game. But you know what I will say about this league is at least they're trying to do the shit over here instead of in Europe, like the NFL tried to do years ago,
right?
and have a
NFL Europe.
NFL Europe league. Because to me, with players that far spread out, you know what I mean? To me, it's kind of hard to be scouted. It's not impossible. But how many times are scouts from the big, from the NFL teams really going to want to fly over there all the time every week to scout players?
Yeah, but they can watch them. They've had a lot of them have signed to their practice squads and their training camp, and they've had some guys that have made it. They just needed another opportunity to show what they had.
Yep.
Getting back to the subject at hand, it was basically Sky Judge. That's one of the things we want to see in the offseason. The combine will still be held for the next 2 years in Indianapolis, but eventually I think it's going to be like the draft. I think they're going to start moving it around because they want to turn it into a way to make money, by charging people to watch rather than just watching it on NFL Network. Everything is about making money. We know this is a business. We admire the sport for what it is as far as the sport and the competition. But when it all comes down to it, this whole thing's a business. And, so anyway, that's all I've got for this week. Looking forward to the NFC and AFC championship games. Next Tuesday, we will recap those games and look forward to the Super Bowl with whichever two teams makes it. I just feel like we're going to be a little disappointed. We'll have to start, getting ready for a game between the other two teams. But no matter what, it's been a really good season, I think, for the teams that are still alive. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun going forward.
Same here. I could have asked for a better season. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, you got everything you wanted. When we started out, you said you wanted them to win the division, you wanted them to host a playoff game and get a win.
Yep.
And you did that, plus you got another win, and you're making your first NFC Championship game appearance in 32 years. You lost to the Washington Redskins back in 1991 or 92.
91.
And then you to San Francisco with an opportunity to make it to the Super Bowl for the first time ever.
It's crazy because that's my birth year. And here we are. No, it's great. You know what I mean? When we started this broadcast, the one last thing I was hoping for is another losing season. And I didn't get any of that. My dreams have came true. Not fully true yet, but most of it. Because winning a Super Bowl takes time. It might not happen this year, it might not happen next year, it might not happen after the year. But what is nice is I know my team should be at least have a chance in the upcoming future every year. For at least next few seasons. Yep.
You're competitive. You're in the playoff. You've got a chance. Sometimes it's a game of inches, and it could be that way on Sunday. It could be you had the game in your grasp and something slipped away,
Yeah.
Or maybe it'll be that way for the Chiefs too, They had the game won. Somebody makes a mistake. Somebody gets a penalty. A turnover happens. And a team that could very well have won it all could, end up going home early. And
for sure.
Let's hope for the best. Thanks again. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, guys. And me and David will get together. We'll kind of get a Outcast, we'll talk about the off season because I'm sure I know we got to take some time off because Dave needs to get his computer checked and stuff. And I think we both earned a couple weeks off just to relax. But definitely we'll definitely be here with somewhat of a schedule through the off season.
We'll definitely have a free agency broadcast on the Sunday after free agency begins. And then leading up to the draft, and I'd like to do another draft where we get everybody that represents a team. I'll call them all on Facebook or on the phone, and we'll make up a mock draft again like we did this last year.
Definitely done. And depending on what things, we'll see if I can work something out. I want to try to work something out where maybe I could be on the draft and either, I don't know, be on a live broadcast or not down there, but at least I can maybe be on Fourth and Goal Sports and do live interviews with random fans. It's in Detroit this year. So we got to see how that plays out.
Hey, I got something to say. You remember who hosted the draft last year, right?
Casey.
Who won the Super Bowl last year?
Casey.
Who's going to win the Super Bowl this year, Chris?
Detroit.
Boy, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Hey, that's why I asked. Does history repeat itself?
Champs host the draft.
Because I didn't really I felt like we could win the game when I first found out after when we won. We're going to 49ers. And then I just happened to scroll Facebook and someone shared it. That it's been 66 years since we won a World Playoff game, San Francisco, and I looked at the year 1957, and that's when it clicked in my head. History repeats itself. Like this could be decency. This could be our decency. You know what I mean? This could be what the football guys earned it up. If it plays out that way, if it plays out the way, you might have to come find me when it's time to start the broadcast back up. Because I might be running wild in Detroit for months, buddy.
All right. Thanks again for joining us, everybody. Be sure to turn in next Tuesday for another Tuesday Night Spectacular right here on Facebook, YouTube, and our other streaming broadcast.
Guys, thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in all year. It's been a great year. We got 2 more games left, and then it's officially off season. So let's enjoy every minute of football we have left. Because, a couple weeks ain't bad, but when you go 2 months, you start getting itchy. So let's soak up every ounce of football left that we have. And we'll see you here next Tuesday. Hopefully, with the biggest showdown we've had on this broadcast. That would be awesome. But you got to come back next week and find out what happens.
See you, buddy.
All right, buddy. Have a good night, David. And good night, you all. If you guys haven't done it yet, go to Fourth and Goal Sports, like and follow. We're live every Tuesday during the season. Off season, we'll probably move back to Sunday nights. Weekend, earlier show. Works out great. Until next time, though, have a good night. Go Lions. Later, guys.